2, 3, 4, 5. In each one of them were 200 African men. There were 200 men in the first one, 200 in this second cube. The third held 200, fourth 250. So that means we're 1,000 men. Now the only source of light in Earth for 200 men was that hole. You know, the conditions here were very bad. There was a wide spread of diseases, malaria, cholera, diarrhea, cancer, yellow fever. On top of this building, the British built a church we call Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. And because there was no light like this, let me take you to the first chamber. Let me put the light out so you can see for yourselves how this place looked like. Watch your steps, please. Held 200 men as well. And the only source of light in Earth for 200 men here were these 3 windows out there. Like I said, there was a massive influx of mosquitoes here, already fighting against each other over resources such as land and gold. And the tribes who conquered other tribes in the name of expanding their jurisdictions, became servants. And when the Europeans came, the first Europeans to come were the Portuguese. And when the Portuguese came, they went to a place called Elmina. Because the Portuguese found gold there, they decided to name that part Elmina. Elmina is a Portuguese word which means the mine or the gold. In 1482, the Portuguese built Elmina Castle. Now, the major difference between Cape's Castle and Elmina Castle is that Elmina Castle was not built for slave trade, but Cape's Castle was built for the purposes of the transatlantic slave trade. So when you go to Elmina Castle, you realize that the dungeons over there are different from the dungeons here. This is a real dungeon. Cape's Castle was built for the purposes of the transatlantic slave trade. And ladies, this is what we brought in. The men. Many of them were for many weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks before they got here. Because many of these men were brought here were not only from Ghana, some of them were from Mali, Burkina Faso, they brought to these places. But this is a trench. The trench looks like this, to the ocean. Now, the purpose of this trench was to flush out the feces in the urine. So whatever that goes through this trench, eventually gets into the ocean. But the most strongest men were the ones that were brought in. Because of that, they had 6 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the British would chain the ocean. Now the reason was to restrict their movement. Any questions? Let me take you to the third chamber. Please come. Watch yourselves firstly. Church on top of the real estate village. Let's come close to this. I need to show you this. Now that hole we see up there is connected to the church. The church is an Anglican church. We call it a Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. And Society for the Propagation of the Gospel is an Anglican church, the Church of England. So the British would worship in the church. The same people stand there and look at the African man in the male slave. This is the part that we do not get to understand. Why was the church built on top of the African man in this dungeon? Now, the original floor is made of bricks. We were supposed to be seeing bricks all the time. We were supposed to be walking on bricks. Okay, this is not the original floor. I need to show you in the fourth chair. We're supposed to be seeing bricks all the time. We're supposed to be standing on bricks. But because there's been millions of African men, this is where the men were sleeping, defecating, eating, dying. So their blood, feces, bloating, the kind of food that we're eating, eventually became this dark food and have more place. So we are basically walking right now on the traces of the DNA of our sisters and sisters. Any questions, please? The last service where all the African men who got sick and were left to die. And after they died, their dead bodies were taken to the ocean. Before what you're studying is a shrine. This is part of what we call the West African traditional spirituality. But this shrine used to be here before the construction of the castle began. But when the Europeans arrived, native took the shrine to a different place. Because after slavery was abolished, that is when this was brought back here by the natives. But there was this big town right here, a very big town. The tunnel was the exit to this sick and weak and even blind were put in there to die. And after they died, their bodies were trashed in the ocean. Those who survived the conditions here were forced to walk through the tunnel to the door we call the door of the tunnel. But this tunnel got blocked off. The tunnel got blocked off in 1834 to officially mark the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade. And there are many ways these were brought here by French visitors in order to pay respect to the ancestors who died in the dungeons. Any questions? Let's take a look before you continue. Okay, let's come around here.
Naum.
Now, before what you are standing is a plaque that was unveiled here by Barack Obama July 2009. The reason why the Obamas were here was the family came here 2009 in order to honor the ancestors who died in the dungeons. And this was a church that was built on top of the male slave dungeon. And the name of the church, again, is Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. And Society for the Propagation of the Gospel is an Anglican church, a church of England. Now this courtyard we see right here was a graveyard, but it was a graveyard where the Europeans who died were buried. And when the Africans died in the dungeons, their bodies were trashed in the ocean. Okay, but there are 4 graves right here. There are many graves, but these are the 4 identified graves, or the 4 known graves. Let's see them, please. That 4th one is for an African, and the other 3 graves they are for Europeans. But I just made mention of the fact that the Africans who died were not buried here. Their bodies were transferred to slave in the dungeon. His name is Philip Wa. His father was a black slave trader who used to work for the British merchants. So when he was 11 years old, the church on top of the male slave dungeon gave him a scholarship to England. He studied theology at the University of Oxford. He was the first African to be ordained as an Anglican priest. He was brought back to the church. He preached and promoted a Western form of education. He was born in 1741. He died in 1816 at the age of 75 years old. Now, next to me is a grave, but there are no names on it. We are unsure whom this grave belongs to. But some historians do claim that this grave could be the grave of his British wife. But because there are no initials, there are no names on it, we are unsure whom graves belongs to. Any questions as far as this grave is concerned? Let's see the 3 graves. Faces for the governor, McLean. Captain George McLean became the governor of Cape Coast Castle from 1830 until 1844. For those of you who have seen the male dungeon, I made mention of the big town. He walled up the town in 1834. McLean was born in 1801. He died in 1847 at the age of 46. Malaria killed him. And that's his wife. The name of his wife is Letitia Elizabeth Glenn. She came all the way from England to visit the husband. But 2 months after she arrived here, she was found dead in the bedroom of the governor up there. I'm going to take it. Now, the
The cause of her death is not certain, but the rumors was that she might have killed herself because she found out that the husband was having an extramarital affair with a black woman. But there are some historical disciples who claim that it could be the black mistress of the husband who poisoned her. She died at the age of 36 years old in the bedroom of the governor. The third grave is for one of the British Army officers. It's called CB in 1812. Any questions? Let's see the male content cell.
Let's come inside so that those who have can also male condemned cell. Some of us have already seen a male dungeon. In the male slave dungeon, I've made mention of 1,000. But there were many African men in the male slave dungeon who resisted, who fought back in order to regain their freedom. So those men were chained and shackled and brought in. We call this cell the male condemned cell. There are no windows here. And there were 3 doors we just came from. 3 short and narrow doors. Men who fought back in the male dungeon were brought here. The numbers of the African men that were brought here depended on the numbers that resisted. If they were 30, 35, 45, we just chain with them and bring them here. After the African men were being held in this cell, all the 3 doors were closed and locked. They were here without windows, no food, no air, no light, no water, till they all died. And because there was no light like this, okay, let me put the light out and close the door so you can see how this place looked like for a few seconds. Okay. Used to keep going. And because they later realized that it wasn't easy for them to control the men, they locked off that door to design a place like this, just to kill them. And this was done like this, to kill them this way in order to put fear in the rest of the men. So after those who died here were completely dead, the British soldiers will go back to their dungeon and bring some of the African men who kept resisting on the courtyard where we saw the graves and trash the bodies of those who died here as a way of putting fear in them.
Hey, sorry.
That's why you said mind your head.
Yeah.
So now they are going you capture, but don't let take it walk around.
This was the auction hall, the market of the slave castle. We call this place Palava Hall. Palava is a Portuguese word which means to negotiate or to bargain. There were many tables here, but these chairs and tables are recent ones. There were many tables. On the tables were items such as clothing items, red wine, bottles of schnapps, gunpowder, tobacco, mirrors, and these were the items that were used for transaction to happen. There were many British slave merchants stationed here, awaiting the African slave merchants to bring the enslaved Africans who were captured or kidnapped from different tribes and different communities. So these were the brothers. The moment they brought them, the British slave merchants here would ask the African slave merchants what they wanted on the tables. The irons had the logo or the names or the initials of the British merchants or trading companies. So they'll just put it in fire and put it on the chest of the victims for easy identification. The women were normally branded here on their arms, but the men on the chest for easy identification. And right after that, the African men were taken to the male slave dungeon, and the women were taken to the female slave dungeon. In the male slave dungeon were as many as 1,000 African men. In the female slave dungeon were as many as 500 African women. We've not seen the female dungeons. Those who started with me, we've not been to the female dungeon. But those who did not start with me, you have not seen both dungeons. But we have already seen the male dungeon. That's what the dungeon we've seen. But from here, I'm going to take you to your residence of the government.
How there? I'm from Oahu. I'm from Oahu. I'm from Oahu.
The living room of the British governor has 9 windows, and that's the bedroom. The bedroom of the governor has 5 windows. So in totality, there are 14 windows for just one person. The views are beautiful. You can easily see the ocean. You have access to these beautiful views. It's very spacious, the air is fresh. Do you see the conditions in the dungeons? Do you see the windows in the dungeons? They are very different from this. They are very where the wife of the governor, McLean's wife, called Letitia, she died in here at the age of 36 years old. When you stand right here, where I'm standing, you can see on the hill another edifice we call a fort. The name of the fort is William. Fort William was built on the hill in order for the British to see everything that was going on around Cape Castle. Because the Dutch, the French wanted to attack. There was a competition because of gold. So the British built that there. The moment they saw other Europeans coming across the ocean, they could easily see them coming. So those there would wave flags to let those here know that someone is coming to get them. Have you seen the cannonballs and cannons? These were the weapons the British were using in order to protect this slave castle. The moment they saw other Europeans like the French, the Dutch were bigger than this, and they all had whales. They could change their locations and directions. And the balls were very big. Every ball had a hole in there. The British soldiers would first put gunpowder in the holes and put the balls in the cannons and fire them with fire.
Let me cross over here. Ain't from a hoopy or something.
This is a hole we saw in the mill dungeon. This hole is connected to the mill slave dungeon. The church was an Anglican church. The British would worship in the church in order for them to still see what is going on in the mill slave dungeon. They'll come and stand right here and look at the African men. This is the part that is very strange. Why was the church built on top of the dungeon? It's very weird. But today the church is a children's library. It has been transformed. And there are many books, but this is for children, not for adults. And these books in this library were donated by different individuals, to help the establishment of this library. Any questions? Yeah.
Why they build the church on top of the
Now, I've not come across sources that explain this, but I think that they built the church on top of them in order to remind the Africans in the dungeons that they were nobody. That they couldn't do it. And this is a form of authority, spiritual authority. That is what I think. That's what I think. Yeah.
How many children do come to the library and where do they come from? Are you doing projects with them?
Now these are from different schools around the castle, not too far away from here. Not children from Accra, from Kumasi, not from Cape Coast. So after school, around 3 p.m. they come around and they come and read.
And they learn about the history?
Yes. We have many schools now. About the history of many schools from Accra, Kumasi, the northern regions, Cape Coast, they do come. But the school, the door of no return is there. And that's the door, that's the male dungeon over there. Now the British soldiers could have allowed the African men in a male slave dungeon walk through this courtyard like this. It's very easy to the door of no return. But they did not allow that to happen. Imagine 1,000 African men walking through this courtyard and accidentally being unshackled. They could try to challenge and they could try to take over the castle. So they would rather chain them in the male dungeon. This is the tunnel. All of this is the tunnel. But the tunnel starts in the male dungeon. This part of the tunnel is just a security post where the British soldiers would stand with guns and urge them, move! So they kept moving. But it's deep. This part is very deep. Let's go there. Let me show you the exit, please.
Bravo. Bravo.
Oh, muy bien,
Vamos a tener hecho. Ecco.
We're the tunnel. We just saw the other part, and this another part. But from where we are standing, okay, we were supposed to be walking through like this to the male dungeon. I said the tunnel starts in the male dungeon. We're supposed to be seeing the male dungeon from here. But because the tunnel got sealed off, that is why we can see it. The reason why the tunnel got sealed off was because the abolition of the slave trade was in England in 1807, but it was still going on here. There was a governor we call Maclean who was very out there. Maclean is from Scotland. He blocked off the tunnel in 1834 to officially mark the abolition. Okay, but when this was open, there used to be a door right here. A very small door we call the door of no return. Very small like this. So the British soldiers would chain the African men, those slave dungeons, would bring them here, force them through this door, put them onto the ships for shipment. But when we're out there, do you see the violence? Do you see how violent the seaways were? British slaveholders sealed this door of no return off completely. But this got sealed off before the tunnel got sealed off. So that means that when this got sealed off, the tunnel was still opened. That part became the exit. So from the male dungeon, they took them to that exit, and that exit leads to the other door of no return, closer to the female dungeons. And that is what I'm taking you to. I'm now taking you to the female dungeons.
From the female dungeons, we move on to the door of no return. Any questions? Please come.
In each one of them were 250 women. The British slaveholders would go in there, they would take the women out and rape them. Many African women resisted rape. All the African women who resisted rape in the female dungeons were brought in the cell to be punched. There was a door here. They locked them up. But for the women, they didn't kill them. So they gave them a window. In the male condemned cell, we didn't see a window. No windows, no food, no air, no lights, no water. So the women, they still give them food and water. But the amount of food and water that was given to few days, and after that, we just take them back to the female dungeons, the shipwrecks, to their murders. No, not yet. I wanted to be to their murders. The women were pregnant. So if you're a slave master, and you have like African, you have a child, you don't want to do this. That is not for you. Let's see the female dungeon.
We're doing.
There's no singing. So these walls, there's a phenomenon called green walls. These walls green. When moisture or water enters on the surface, it doesn't get stuck. It penetrates and evaporates through. So no matter how many times you paint, the walls are going to be old like you saw outside, because the walls are green.
So this is the female dungeon. The other female dungeon is there. So 250 each with the maximum values, 108 each with the minimum values. These were the source of values. So,
Who were pregnant here, were taken outside the castle to raise children. The children that the African women gave to were nice and children. And they had names like Johnson, Wilson, Peterson, Lanson, Harrison, Simpson. The nice and children were upstairs. We saw the church from top of the roof and to the walls. These BGC here were brought in visitors in order to pay respect to the ancestors who died in the dungeons.
door of no return. The original door of no return was a very small door right here. We call this door the door of no return because this was the final exit through which our ancestors walked through and never came back to Africa. Now the bigger slashes were very far away from here. The British would bring smaller boats here, they put the Africans onto, transfer them to the bigger slashes for shipments. The journey took them 3 to 4 months, and that was the most dangerous process our ancestors went through to the Americas. Today we are going to walk through a door we call the door of no return, through which millions of Africans walked through and never came back to Africa. It is estimated that over 4 million West Africans were shipped off from Cape Coast Slave Castle alone. In West Africa, it is estimated at over 12 million, but I think these figures are not correct. It could be over 50 or 55 or 60 million. It is also estimated that over 40% of the total population were shipped off by the Portuguese. The Portuguese normally transported the Africans to Brazil. That is why Brazil has a very large population of African people. Please come. Now we have 30 seconds to take pictures for those of you interested in taking pictures before you go. Please. Yeah, Judge. 2 minutes na baby eye. Hello, mami. Waka 2 minutes. Maybe sisi ya eye for Nyabutal, ma'am. Nyabutal. 1998, during the emancipation. Emancipation is a historical movement where the global African family come together to commemorate, to show their respect. In 1998, were skeletons of two people we call Samuel Carson and Madame Crystal. Samuel Carson is from New York, Madame Crystal is from Jamaica. They are part of the Africans who went through these atrocities. They died and were buried there respectively. In 1998, their skeletons were taken from their graves and brought to Accra. From Accra, they transferred them to a place called Abanzi, and from Abanzi, they were brought across the ocean through the door of return. This is a symbolic movement in order to urge the Africans in the diaspora to come back to their roots. Door of return. Now, this is where I would like to end my presentation. Do not forget there are 3 slave castles in Ghana: the Elmina Castle, Osu Castle, and Cape Coast Castle. The Elmina Castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. Osu Castle was established by the Danes in 1661, and this is Cape Coast Castle. Cape Coast Castle was built by the British in 1664. But you know, slavery is still going on in so many different ways. As a people, let's come together, let's educate the next generation so we do not repeat the same mistakes. I do appreciate your cooperation. My name again is Tony Wuiji. Thank you very much for your cooperation once again.
Thank you.